What if one of the most devastating brain disorders of our time, Alzheimer's disease, could be traced back to something as tiny as a mineral deficiency? A trace mineral you probably already consume every day without even knowing it. New research doesn't just come from mice or cell cultures. This time the research looked directly into human brains after death and tested dozens of different metals in the brain. And this is the shocking part. This is what they found. From all the metals, only one stood out. This is what they have done. The researchers examined the part of the brain that is critical for memory and decision making and compared different mineral concentration, and one single mineral stood out: lithium. It has been consistently and significantly lowered in people with mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's, and compare these to those without impairment. This is a tremendous result based on the fact that medicine offers very little consolation to patients with these diseases. But association, of course, is not a cause, and the presence of lithium in the brain indeed strongly correlates with protection against Alzheimer's, but we cannot say yet if it's the lithium deficiency in the brain that causes Alzheimer's, or maybe it's Alzheimer's itself that depletes lithium. But the connection is striking. But the researchers didn't stop there. They provided mice with lithium orotate in a common form sold in supplements that is very available to you and me. And in this mice study, they have found three amazing things. The first one is very low lithium orotate, I'm going to tell you in a second how much, was sufficient to prevent and even reverse plaque in the brain, myelin markers, and also rescued memory. This is not just prevention, but actually reversal. This study suggests that lithium deficiency drives plaque formation in the brain, and you just need a tiny bit to prevent that completely. How tiny? That's the second discovery, the dose. A rough mouse to human scaling puts the lithium orotate about 0.03 milligrams per day of elemental lithium for a 70-kilo person. But this tiny amount was connected to the form, lithium orotate, which is the third discovery. Many commenters on my last video requested to know more about the form difference, so there it is. The researchers found that orotate worked better than carbonate for removing and preventing plaque from the brain. This is supported by old studies where lithium orotate showing 3 times more penetration into the brain in rats versus carbonate. So you may wonder how lithium orotate works to prevent the plaque or even reverse it like they showed in the study. This is the most likely explanation at this point. When taking lithium orotate, some of this form stays intact and gets into the brain and protected from the entrapment by the plaque itself. And these low levels of lithium orotate are sufficient to inhibit an enzyme called JSK beta, which leads to the activation of autophagy in the brain. What happens next, you may wonder? So what autophagy does, it removes protein garbage. And protein garbage is the essence of the plaque that contributes to Alzheimer's disease. Now, why is this exciting? Because the study covered both the mechanistic study on the brain of mice and human brains analysis. But it's also supported by human data in other studies where higher lithium in the water supply is associated with lower Alzheimer's rates. And even more exciting is that lithium orotate is accessible to anyone and it's very cheap. And actually the researchers, I've checked that for you, had no conflict of interest, so nobody's interested in selling you lithium orotate for $2 a month to achieve this dose. All in all, this study puts this supplement, lithium orotate, as a very interesting insurance against a disease that medicine doesn't really know how to prevent in full, let alone reverse. And a disease that impacts not just the person, but their entire family, causing massive amount of suffering that may be avoided. So the risk-reward ratio here is tremendous if indeed we find a way to take lithium orotate safely. So who should consider taking this supplement? There are 2 groups that may benefit the most from it. First, women over age 45. Up to menopause, women preserve more of their brain's performance compared to men. But then, after menopause, the beta amyloids, which causes the plaque, begin to accumulate silently, and this deposit accumulation begins in mid-40s and 50s. And even if the symptoms of Alzheimer's would appear only in the late 60s or 70s. And this actually fits well into the rapid aging we have seen in women after menopause. Another group that may need this protection are men with single or 2 copies of a gene called ApoE4. These genes increase dramatically the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So these 2 groups may consider the insurance against Alzheimer's and plaque formation by consulting their doctor. And remember, the key when using an insurance is to use it by reducing risk and side effects as much as possible. And how do we do that? By the tactic of taking the supplement. Usually by minimizing the dose and cycling the supplement, meaning taking some time off. I explain more in the more in-depth version about lithium for longevity. Now, why you still want to curb your enthusiasm? First, this is a mice study, and it was conducted with mice with genetic mutation for fast plaque accumulation. Now, mice, first of all, they don't have the human brains that we have, but now you put them on accelerated mode of plaque formation, all while humans, we develop plaque over many decades, so it's difficult to translate directly. Also, in humans, Alzheimer's is not just caused by plaque alone, but by multiple overlapping drivers, such as brain insulin resistance, blood-brain barrier breakdown, vascular damage, chronic inflammation, and mitochondrial failure all happens in the brain. And lastly, there is a huge unknown about the dose, because we don't have a complete data on long-term lithium orotate on human health. Yet most of the human data is actually low-dose lithium that comes from water, which is actually more similar to lithium carbonate. So what's the difference? Lithium carbonate flooding the system with free lithium ions, which can get trapped by plaques and may not even penetrate well into the brain. Lithium orotate, on the other hand, releases the lithium ions more slowly, and potentially more of the lithium reaches the brain. And bear in mind that a minuscule amount of lithium orotate achieve the results. So based on this data, we may speculate that you probably need even lower amounts than what appears in the water supply. So we don't know the ideal dose at this point. Because remember, it's not just the brain, it's our entire health. But overall, there is a huge room for excitement for Alzheimer's protection, which brings us to the big picture of lithium supplementation. So this is what the data says today. For Alzheimer's prevention as insurance, it's very exciting, but we still don't know the correct dose and long-term side effects. For slowing down aging, living longer, and longevity, I'm not convinced yet. I need more data. I will test that and run brain aging tests after 4 months of cycled supplementation. And third, mood stability. Low-dose lithium looks very promising for that. There is a strong data in humans, and actually I'm testing that right now on my body as I check the aging tests. And fourth, we have psychiatric uses. This is not my specialty. Now, if you want to know more about the cycling method of taking lithium, or if you care about anti-aging and keeping your body young, check my 21-minute deep dive on lithium for longevity. It's free on this channel. And a huge thank you to all my Patreon supporters. Your support makes these videos possible.